jam? Throwing a car at me?
Gonna stop me?
Huh?
Brad, get in there, get it done.
Non, pas besoin. Il vient vers nous.
This is not a good idea.
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right. I'm Reese. To my left is...
David.
Further to my left...
Irina.
Across from me...
The Warlock.
Oh, that's the one?
Also known as...
Noah.
It's Gennaro.
And off in a distant land, we have...
AJ.
And today we're talking about Live Free or Die Hard.
So we didn't watch a documentary on Patrick Henry?
Wait.
No, we didn't. Why do you ask?
Give me liberty or give me death.
Oh.
There's your meaning for you.
Yeah, that does
that was
answer
the
it.
New
the origin.
Hampshire
Yeah.
state something or other.
That was one of the inspirations of the movie. Good job, AJ. You're kind of on topic. Not quite, but you might have some interesting factoids to throw at us. Anyway, Live Free or Die Hard came out in 2007. It's a film directed by Lynn Wiseman, who also directed Underworld 1 and 2 and the Total Recall remake. It stars Bruce Willis, Justin Long, Timothy Olyphant, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Kevin Smith, Cliff Curtis, and Maggie Q, and was written by Mark Bomback. It's also, just like the previous 3 Die Hards, based off a different property that was originally meant for something else. It was actually a article titled A Farewell to Arms, written by John Carlin. It was like a Wired article. So it's a very the source material for this is very small, I guess. But they expounded on that and based their script off of that. Anyway, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So you guys, had y'all seen Live Free or Die Hard before this episode? David?
Yes, actually, this was the first Die Hard movie that I ever saw. Whoa.
That's crazy. That's probably something not a lot of people say.
I know. I'm not proud of it. I mean, you have all 3 movies before this. I don't know.
I'm actually not far away from you because I do think I saw Die Hard before Live Free or Die Hard, but it was not long before this one. It had to have been in the same year. I think I watched it in preparation for Live Free or Die Hard, and I hadn't seen any of the sequels. So this was the second one I had seen.
Yep. I definitely think we saw this when it came out. We had the DVD. I remember the cover of the DVD too. It was just intense. I don't know. It was one
of those action movie covers.
Yeah, it was classic, and I'm pretty sure I watched this a lot in the first year or two that it came out. So yeah, I'm more familiar with this one than any of the other ones.
Yeah, that's interesting. How about you, Noah?
I don't remember.
But you had seen it.
I had seen it, but I don't remember.
Your first time.
Yeah. I can't remember when I saw it and what the context was.
Yeah, when was your first time, Noah?
The context was movie watching.
Oh.
Yeah, you make a good point, Irina. You make a good point. I realized as I said it, I was like, well, it's too late.
Well, did you have any feelings of this movie when you first saw it? Like what?
I think I remember it being pretty cool at the time, but I owe you a beer now because last podcast I thought that it would not be good.
Yeah. So I guess
showing a little bit of his hand there.
We'll see what degree you fall in with this film. So, how about you, Arvina?
I had seen this before. I didn't watch it in theaters, though. I think you may have put it on to watch at one point.
Sounds like something I might do.
I think you insisted upon us watching this or something, and it's really good. We're gonna put it on. And you're gonna enjoy it. And this was the only other Die Hard movie I had watched because obviously I had seen the first, but I had never seen any in between.
Yeah, well, I think that's going to be a common theme with people our age, us being mid-20s to early 30s. You watch the classic one,
Right.
the original Die Hard. Then there's all the sequels that didn't come out when this franchise was relevant to you. And then there was the more modern one where it's like, oh, I can jump on
Yeah, that
board
makes
with
sense.
this newer one.
Like an entry into it.
Fortunately, it didn't ruin my experience with it, because all of these movies, technically, you can watch individually and not really have to know what
Yeah, they're
came
all
before it.
They only have very small threads that carry
Yeah.
on through each film, but they're mostly just isolated incidents.
Right.
Not incidents, but isolated incidents happen. John McClane is involved in
Yeah,
them.
in my mind, it's almost sort of a superhero comic-esque, because there is a theme, there is this overall story, but you can still start wherever and enjoy, yep, it's Superman kicking butt. That's what you get.
And this one really does take the whole superhero aspect to heart in a way.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, AJ?
So I thought I hadn't, but when I started watching this movie, I realized I had. And I think I'm actually with David here. This may be the first Die Hard that I saw in the franchise. I guess at the time when I watched it, I didn't make the connection, or maybe it was just like, oh yeah, Die Hard's just like, another Rambo where there's like 50 of them or something like that.
Yeah, and the title does kind of throw you off. It's not called Die Hard. Die Hard is in the title, and Bruce Willis is in it. But
Right. But
this
it's
is
like
the
you
new
said,
era
that-
of Bruce Willis. He's
Yeah,
like the
there's that-
bald. It's the bald version.
Yeah, there's that gap where our generation kind of, we didn't grow up with the first three, so you don't make
Right.
that connection right off the bat. Yeah, so I don't know if I, saw it on Netflix randomly in the middle of the night or something like that, but I definitely have distinct memories of seeing this, or at least most of it.
All right. And I already touched on it a little bit. I had seen this movie. I saw it in the theater. It was one of those movies I was looking forward to, but I remember Transformers, the first movie, being in theaters as well.
Wait, at the same time as this?
Well, this one came out first, I believe.
It definitely
but
did.
I didn't see it on opening weekend. But me and some friends, we went to go see Live Free or Die Hard, and I was kind of wanting to see Transformers. But then I remember, in hindsight, being like, oh, after seeing both of these movies, Live Free or Die Hard, I enjoyed that one more than I did Transformers. I'm glad I saw that one first. We'll see if that opinion holds up throughout this episode.
So were you already listening to metal at the time, or did Flyleaf stand out to you then?
Oh, I thought Flyleaf was hardcore. Yeah, I thought.
I can't remember.
wanna
What?
hear
I will
the-
break into your face? Is
I
that
don't-
what
I
you
can't
said?
remember. I don't know what the words are.
Yeah, I think that scene's the most dated out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But, I get it.
I still have this weird nostalgia for that scene specifically.
But it
Yeah.
also is in keeping with that character who's a total kind of nerd. It makes sense.
No,
that
he's a
Justin-
hacker, dude.
Yeah, Justin Long would listen to something like that. With all that said, are y'all ready to get into, are y'all ready to get into
Are
the story?
y'all ready?
Yes, sir, Buckaroo.
All right. And before I always forget to just naturally transition into this, but David, do you want to do our call to action?
One of these days I'll write it down. Yeah, so we do this podcast for free, and it's a it's a process, and I don't know where I'm going with this, but you
And
guys
it's
should.
free.
And it's free. I don't know. It helps us whenever people go out of their way to follow, like, and subscribe. I think giving us a 5-star on Apple or leaving us some sort of comment is big for us. So
And I should call out what Noah says sometimes. It is not for free. It's actually to our
Deficit.
financial deficit doing this podcast, and that is why we need some sort of support.
Emotionally.
It can be free support. Give us a 5-star review on Apple. It costs you nothing except a little bit of your time. So yeah.
I think it's funny that you always ask me to do the call to action, then I always feel like it ends with you giving a gist of what I said.
Well, I'm trying
We have a process.
I like throwing you out in the deep water and seeing if you
tag
can,
team.
you
Do
can make it back to the boat.
I honestly feel like I'm just like shimmying my way back.
It's
I
okay.
figure it out.
You'll nail it sometimes.
One of these days.
You're Sam going out to the boat that
Yeah,
Frodo's
just-
already in,
just sinking.
and you start sinking, and then Reese is Frodo reaching in and grabbing you.
Oh, but that means you will carry me in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that will.
Yeah.
I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you.
The podcast.
I can't. Yeah, I can't carry the podcast, but I can carry you.
Yeah. All right, let's get into that story.
I'm doing America a favor. Is the country willing to pay for it?
FAA just issued a critical alert. The entire network went down.
Transportation system's crashing and they just hit the entire financial sector.
You have no idea who you're dealing with.
I'll take it from here.
You just killed a helicopter with a car!
I was out of bullets.
Russo, check in.
Hold on a minute. Looks like he's coming around. You see that?
Yeah, I saw it. I did it. Hang on.
The FBI responds to a brief computer outage at its cybersecurity division by tracking down top computer hackers. The FBI asks New York Police Department Detective John McClane to bring in hacker Matthew Farrell. McClane arrives at Farrell's residence just in time to save Farrell from assassins sent by Mai Lin, who works for Thomas Gabriel. All right, so what do y'all think of the opening to this movie? We've got a bunch of hackers being blown up, which I feel like is pretty funny that they'd go to these extreme lengths to place these C4 bombs on these computers, so when they press the end key, they blow up.
Delete button, yeah.
And then they also have, people staged outside to shoot them if that doesn't go.
That's what I didn't understand. I think it's in concept, if you just like relax and watch it, you're like, yeah, I get it, they're trying to kill him, but he doesn't hit that button. He hesitates for a split second before he hits the button. Yeah. They're like, he's not hitting it, get in there, shoot him. I'm like, well, you could have just done that to begin with.
Not only that makes a big scene.
Yeah.
That is not
a discreet way of taking someone out.
Yeah, exactly. Someone's going to investigate that and notice, like,
the gas leak.
They were this person. They were very savvy with computers. They exploded by C4 in an apartment building.
Yeah, well, you would think Thomas Gabriel, who we learn later is like the hacker of all hackers, would have, maybe over time planned this out a little better, where, you maybe take out these hackers one by one, I don't know, over the course of months rather than, let's just blow them all up right now. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what makes sense.
Also, it's pretty extreme. Did they have to kill the hackers? Is there a reason?
Well, they could have perhaps stopped his plan.
Yeah, the hacker. I don't know. I don't think Matthew Farrell would have gone out of his way to try to stop.
Well, no, the thing is, all of these hackers were doing his business unknowingly, and he's taking them out so that they can't stop him from stealing the work that they've done to progress his
Leave
mission.
no trace. The fact is, you could anyone that realizes what's happening could try and trace who they're in contact with and get some kind of bit of information, just like John McClane does here in this scenario. So
yeah. So with that said, we're already. This movie is looking like it's more on the plausibility level of a Die Hard 2 versus a Die Hard 1 and 3.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think this one, it tonally makes more sense to be more over the top. I'm not as bothered by it as I was in Die Hard 2.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all feel the same way.
I think it's funny. I just happened to watch a video that is related to what you're talking about, but not about this movie at all. And I think, David, you were playing, what is that YouTube channel about special
Crew?
effects?
Mm-hmm. Corridor Crew.
Yeah.
So they were comparing Grand Budapest Hotel to Inception. And how Inception...
no, you're thinking of a different... That wasn't...
No, that wasn't... Well, then who was it?
It was just a random video. Actually.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, we were watching a video, and it was talking about the difference between those two film styles, where Inception is obviously fanciful, but the way it's filmed and portrayed makes you see it as more of a reality.
You go along
Whereas,
with it.
Grand Budapest Hotel... When you think about what's happening, it is a real event, but the way it's filmed and framed makes it more fanciful and playful than the other.
Even though it is more real.
That's kind of what I think of with this film is a lot of what happens is completely ridiculous. But I did notice that they made efforts to try and make it plausible in this setting, or at least make you try to sell what's happening,
And another thing I think helps is that Bruce Willis has aged gracefully into an older McClane. For one, he looks different. He's a little more world weary, and his humor is completely on point in this one. Whereas I think this is the funniest he's been since the first one. Like, I think all of his quips, all of his remarks, they're just so perfect for what you would imagine an older McClane would say in the situation that he's got himself into. He's always remarking on the ridiculousness. He's almost as in disbelief as we are as we're watching it, and I think
that helps.
Yeah, that helps a lot. And this is like the same year, or a year before, we had Harrison Ford as
Indiana Jones and the Crystal
coming back
Skull.
as Indiana Jones, and he just looks tired and haggard. That's the perfect word. Like, he just doesn't want to be there. But Bruce Willis, he's like I am embracing this older McClane, and I'm just going 100% full bore into it. How about you, AJ? How are you feeling at the beginning of this movie at this point?
You guys took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I agree. Like, really, like the whole cheesy hacking thing. Like, it's dumb. Like, if you are in any kind of IT or whatever, you're gonna know this is like terrible hacking IT stuff. But somehow this has that coat of like paint on it or polish where you can swallow the pill and not, you're able to do the whole suspension of disbelief or not complain about the egregious clacking on the keyboard and saying I'm in. Like, it's kind of on that level, but like it doesn't seem like it on the surface, and so you're swept along with the tone of it. Like you said, it's through that lens. Like, I really like what Irina pointed out, with Inception versus Grand Budapest Hotel. It's really that little coat of sheen on it that makes the whole world of difference, paired with Bruce Willis, like you said. So yeah, you guys really said what I wanted to say.
We nailed it on this one.
Cool.
Also, I think we should get Noah a leather trench coat and some like black early 2000s sunglasses and like do a photo shoot of him hacking things, just like going up to.
It's funny you say that because I mean the intro scene of Farrell like really kind of evoked some Matrix vibes for me. The intro to Matrix.
It does.
Yeah.
Hacktivism, white hat, whatever.
Right.
Like, kind of somewhat harmless, but also getting into things you're not supposed to be. And the whole like underground subculture of it and everything.
Suddenly he's pulled into a world that he didn't realize was there.
He didn't even get a red pill or blue pill option. He just was force fed the red pill.
Yeah.
Speaking of Matthew, sorry, go ahead.
No, it was just like, and then to reiterate, the whole like C4 was kind of overkill for these, medium profile white hat hackers who were, savvy enough to get the job done, but not high profile enough where they're not immediately on whatever list.
Right.
So that was kind of
FBI most wanted,
and especially contrasted with the explosion effects of like the third movie. It was it felt a little bit too over the top, but
it is, and it definitely goes over the top towards the end. But speaking of Matthew Farrell, played by Justin Long, I think he is the absolute perfect foil to John McClane.
Oh yeah,
where it's like he's the perfect intro into this hacker world. And their ideologies are just completely different. Like the music that John McClane listens to, the things that he's into, and the things that Justin Long's into. It's just a deep well of humor, and just the way that they bond is enjoyable to watch.
Right.
I like how they see eye to eye towards the end and how they come together.
Well, when they go over the Creedence Clearwater Revival thing and like the banter they have there felt very real to what happens in real life. Also, the fact that he keeps bringing up how hungry he is. He's like, really?
Yeah.
That's what you're bringing up now?
Well, I think I love that this movie really does focus on how would a civilian act if they were thrust into this situation with John McClane. John McClane, we've seen do ridiculous things before, and he even uses the commentary upon his situation to reflect on just how ridiculous it is. But I think this Farrell character is used to kind of further contrast that, where, okay, here's a civilian, here's John McClane doing his crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I like the way Justin Long plays this character, because Justin Long usually is kind of just himself, the same way that I find Bruce Willis is. But it really works in this scenario. Their chemistry is palpable.
I actually think this partnership works more than it did in Die Hard with a Vengeance. And that might be a controversial opinion, but I think these two characters learn more from each other than McClane and Zeus did in 3.
I really feel like they
So-
didn't learn anything from each other.
I thought they did.
They did.
Regarding,
Like they were from completely different, walks of life, completely different ages. McClane is the more old school. Like I'll just punch a guy. I know how to get the job done. Whereas, why am I blanking
Zeus?
on his name? No, Farrell.
No, I agree with that part. I'm saying I think they had more than Zeus and he did.
Oh, okay. So,
there-
you're agreeing with me.
I don't
Yeah.
know. There are two sides of that because there's a difference between being partners and learning things from each other. I think that these two make a really good kind of mentor-mentee kind of thing, but Justin Long's character has his own way of doing things as well that works in its own right.
Yeah, I do think. I think even though Farrell does prove some things to John McClane, though, I think
Yeah.
John McClane learns a couple of things from him.
I
like
agree.
How he's
I just don't see it as much of a partnership and more of a, just kind of like we have to get this done, so we'll do it together. And
Yeah, I think
it
they
ends
just
up being-
they just have good chemistry.
Yeah, they do have really good chemistry though. I agree with that.
I miss
I
Justin
like
Long.
their relationship, but it doesn't seem like a buddy.
yeah. I think this and Galaxy Quest might be his best
I'm
performances.
gonna say I like Accepted. I know that's probably
That's
the minority,
It's
but
like one of those forgotten college level movies.
it was so
that's
good
like-
to me.
I think we need to rewatch it. I think
Yep.
you might have not seen it.
Have any of you guys watched Tusk?
No,
Oh, that movie's so ridiculous, but I do like him in that as well. That's true.
when was the last time Justin Long was in a movie?
He's been in stuff. He's
Oh well,
just,
Drag Me to Hell was pretty good too. Like
I don't know
in
if he
that
was
too.
amazing in it though.
was
It
sad.
But
was fine.
that's a fun movie.
It is a fun movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah, but speaking on his character, I like his arc. He's throughout the thing kind of a more selfish guy that is almost okay with the world burning. And then as he goes, it turns out he's rather heroic.
Yeah, and John McClane kind of puts him in his place, and he's like, he actually thinks
Right.
about it instead of just fighting him on it.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah.
In a similar way to how I felt about John McClane in the first Die Hard, there's this aspect of this character that is very relatable, even though he has a unique skill, a unique talent that most people probably don't have. He is a hacker, but there's an aspect of him where you can relate, and so it does pull you into the film a little more and feel the stress of the situation. Whereas if it was just John McClane going through these hoops, you wouldn't feel as worried. You've seen him do this 3 times before,
Yeah.
But not only that, even if you aren't worried about Matt or Matthew or whatever, Farrell,
Matthew,
Farrell.
whatever.
it's always fun to have someone witnessing who you view as the hero do great acts.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, look, they just did that and you saw.
Yeah, and we're going to tap into how this movie really does a good job of that, and also having the villain in the most, like, having so many satisfying scenes of McClane just getting closer and closer to the villain, and the villain becoming more and more frantic as he gets closer.
Well, so while I like the villain in Die Hard 1, like the first one, better, this one I think was close to the structure of the first one, as in that dynamic of kind of the cat and mouse a little bit, but McClane's just foiling everything. He's just like, I just can't get rid of this guy. Like,
I just love how freaking annoying John McClane is to all his enemies.
I know.
That's what I'm saying, though. This movie, like, he is good in this. Like, whereas in 2 and 3, some of his retorts to the villains, they were good, but they didn't, like, they weren't, like, biting like he is in this one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whereas when he says something, it's like, ooh, that hurts.
I think of the villains in all these movies like, why won't you die?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He just honestly, I think one of my man, it's in the next part, so I'll save it.
Before we move on, I do want to talk about, we do get one action sequence in here, and it's our first like intro into this new director's, how he handles action. And it is more heightened than it has been in at least 3 and 1. But the choreography, I feel, is is really well done in this one. There's so many fun and inventive sequences that even play to the PG-13 crowd effectively. Like, they don't need blood. It's an engaging action sequence. And we get this sequence when McClane is trying to extract Farrell from his apartment. I will say these guys really like to shoot a whole bunch of bullets into this room and are not very effective at what they're doing.
No,
Right.
they're terrible.
But there's some fun moments here, such as the explosion going off and the body flying towards the door, and the fire extinguisher kill.
That was cool.
And on top of that, the fence kill where the parkour
yeah.
guy jumps on the fence
He didn't
and
die.
then he hits the he fell in the garbage.
Still-
No. He got back up and met up with his team.
That's true.
It seems unrealistic after flying off and slamming into a wall.
He did
but-
fall in the comfy garbage, though. That's true.
Yeah.
But that
Comfy
was
garbage.
That was fun. I thought the execution of that was. I was confident that we were going to get good action
Right.
from
Yeah.
that point.
It's more believable than a 50-year-old man dropping about 50 feet and being able to walk off without a limp.
Yeah, true. What are you referencing?
This.
Oh, later on?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, yeah, it does happen, but I didn't know if you might have been referencing something different.
No.
But, you think back to Die Hard 2, there's that part where he launches himself out of that airplane as
Yeah.
50 grenades are thrown in there and they sit there
Yeah.
for 5 minutes.
Die Hard
It's-
2 was also ridiculous.
Yeah. So there's people online that think this is where the franchise jumped the shark. Like, have you not seen Die Hard 2? That's where it happened.
Yeah,
Die Hard 2 is pretty out there.
But anyway, yeah, this Die Hard 2 softens the blow of this movie, I feel like. If there
Yeah.
had just been Die Hard 1 and 3 and then this one, then it would be like, oh, this is ridiculous.
It's also just a completely different feel from a normal Die Hard movie. It kind of found its own place. I feel like they realized they couldn't capture the same feeling from the originals and decided to go a completely different direction.
Yeah, it feels different but the same. They are very aware that he is aged more.
Yeah.
But that it doesn't affect the action. The action's still like
Oh, yeah, it's
completely
awesome.
amped up.
Also, it's a different era of movies with people that have slightly differing tastes,
Yeah, and that's the whole, the terrorist in this one is completely different. He's a
Yeah,
cyber terrorist,
exactly.
essentially.
And I actually think he did a good job, too.
Yeah, and we'll get more into
okay.
Timothy Olyphant here, but let's continue with this story. On the way to Washington, D.C., Farrell tells McClane that he had written an algorithm for Lynn that could crack a specific security system for white hat purposes. Meanwhile, Gabriel orders his crew of hackers, based in an 18-wheeler, to take control of transportation grids and the stock market, while also nationally broadcasting a message threatening the United States. Farrell recognizes this is the start of a fire sale, which is a cyber attack designed to disable the nation's infrastructure. McClane and Farrell are driven to FBI headquarters, but Lynn poses as a dispatcher and reroutes the convoy into an ambush. McClane fends off the attackers and destroys their helicopter.
That's putting it lightly.
I know, there's more to that sequence. They
Destroys their
destroys
helicopter.
them. Yeah.
That's all.
Don't
that
worry
happened.
about how.
So now the plan is coming into fruition, I guess, and we have what's his name, Gabriel. What's his first name? I can't remember. Thomas Gabriel.
Yeah.
We're getting a better sense of what this villain is doing. We get the whole video package that they send of all the various presidents spliced together.
Lots of Nixon.
Lots of Nixon.
Oh, I
Yeah.
heard that that they took 4 months to make that video because they had to go through so much archive footage.
Yeah, it shows. It's a pretty. I'd be creeped out if I saw that on a TV.
Yeah, I guess they were going for a ransom note style video.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that a serial killer sends to the police department with
Yep.
all those various different letters.
Yeah,
like
like
this is in
sniffed out a
video form.
newspaper, yeah.
It's untraceable. Yeah, I liked the setup of Thomas Gabriel's plan. It's again ridiculous, but I really like Timothy Olyphant. He sells this villain role.
He fire sales it.
Yeah,
He has a good charisma, for sure.
yeah.
He has this aspect about him that, unlike some of the other villains I've seen, really made me want to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's his
he
eyes,
has
man. They're
that-
just like they don't blink.
Okay,
Yeah.
imagine Matt Damon from the Bourne series, but add in a layer of douche. Like that's what I see from him because he
Add
has
in
the
a layer
same-
of Chad.
Yeah, a layer of Chad. I missed it.
The thing about him, though, is that he does look, a little Chad-like, but he's not the kind of Chad-like that you would doubt that he's able to do
levels
the
of
things
Chad.
he is.
Yeah.
He definitely seems
You should write a
like he's
book.
intelligent
50
enough.
Shades of Chad.
Yeah.
50 Shades of Chad.
And sorry, Chad listeners, we don't actually hate people named Chad. It's just that we're
Yeah.
It's
just-
true.
Yeah, you're better than Chaz. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Sorry,
hey, hey,
Chazzes.
I've known some good Chazzes.
I've actually known some good Chads, so I will just say that I have
I've
actually
known some good Karens.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, moving on.
Wait,
How do we think this villain stacks up against the other three in this series so far? Do you think
Less charisma, more intelligence.
uniqueness,
In some,
nerve, and talent?
Yes.
I would say he's got mid-range charisma, mid-range
Yeah,
intelligence.
that's fair. I don't think-
comparatively, he's better than 2.
I'm just talking about how much you like him, like
Oh, how
as
much we
the
like him.
villain in this.
Yeah.
Well,
I like
that kind of determines.
Oh man, but you had some good villains though in these series. I think he's third on the list.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd say I think he's tied with Jeremy
I
Irons.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
I guess I just like Jeremy Irons
Me
more,
too.
and
I like
that's
Jeremy
what's
Irons a
influencing
lot.
my
I
opinion.
like
Timothy
Jeremy.
Olyphant, man.
I do too.
Better
I
than
like Jeremy Irons,
Not
but I
better.
feel like Jeremy Irons as a villain, that film wasn't really the best example I would want to give
That's fair.
if I were to give Jeremy Irons best work.
Yeah.
I feel the same way here, where it's not that it's a bad performance. It's just you don't really get to know that much about him, which is fine because you understand his purpose, you understand the drive behind it. He's kind of annoying. He has this weird sort of mixture of this hacker plan, but he also looks like a businessman, you
And
know?
white-collar
So
guy.
it's very interesting, and you kind of want to know more about that.
And we do kind of learn a little bit more, but it never completely like sheds
Yeah,
a light
yeah.
on who he is. He's just kind of a defected hacker dude.
that work for the government.
Yeah.
It does shed light on that, but
Yeah, but not to the point where it's overexposure of who that
Oh,
character is. I think they
yeah.
do the right balance of
yeah,
revealing who he
I
is.
agree. He's enough in the shadows and enough out in the open.
Yeah. Anyway, another example of how I feel like John McClane is back to like how he was in the first film, humor wise. I love that scene where they're being the cop car is being diverted into a location by the sexy voiced lady,
Yeah.
As they say.
and John McClane tests her.
Yeah.
And he's like, how he gives some like,
Hey,
directive-
dispatch,
Hey,
how's it
dispatch,
going?
how's it going with those 40 something or others? I don't know what he says. And she's like, oh yeah, it's it's real. We're real busy out here or something. I don't know. I'm butchering
Yeah.
what she actually said. But he's like, oh, you're having a problem with all the naked people running around?
Put your boss on the line, honey.
Yeah, it was just so good. But then this leads into this elaborate action sequence of Gabriel kind of locking them in this tunnel and then opening the access ways of cars on both sides. This is another like kind of
Over the top.
over the
Yeah.
top. You would think that these cars would like they do turn on their lights, but you'd think they'd be slowing down, and this type of thing wouldn't happen in real life. It would be there might be a couple of collisions, but it wouldn't be this extended like cars zooming past one another.
You're talking the tunnel scene?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
It's-
talking the tunnels.
But the thing is, this movie has already established itself as this kind of heightened reality, so
Right.
I am still down with it, and I actually remember this sequence being longer when I first saw it. It's actually very short.
Yeah.
There's a couple of collisions, a car goes flipping and hits two cars, and they're hiding under it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then they run out of there, and a truck hits a column.
Yeah.
That's essentially it.
I do have a question, kind of diverting back to the original idea of a fire sale. Is this something that's possible? Is this something that people have talked about before? Because this is where I first heard about it. And
I'm assuming it's a real thing, but I did not do anything.
wow, we
any
didn't research
on
very
it.
well, did we?
So
not a-
I'm
So a fire sale is kind of just like a broad generic term, especially for erasure of like financial data. And then you have the multi-pronged approach of, the other points of attack for utilities and whatever to take down the government. It's not like a huge, massive, like established definition of something.
Right.
Like most instances of like if you Google it in this context, you're going to come up with Die Hard.
Right.
But I mean, it does have some context outside of that. Now, like taking down the government itself, like of course, there are people that want to do that, and I think some of this that's somewhat realistic is, or kind of speaks to the audience maybe on a certain level, is kind of makes you wonder how much your government is actually like vulnerable to this kind of stuff, especially, you see like Snowden and all that stuff after all that stuff. But then there's also,
Yeah.
you know, multiple levels of redundancy too. So it's not like you can just get on your cell phone and hack into the satellite network and that kind of thing.
Got
But-
them. The
Yeah.
government's down. They can't do anything.
So it is technically a thing that could happen or has happened to, you know, minimal degrees,
Yeah,
but
that's
not
kind
to
of
the scale.
that's kind of something I was wanting to get at. It's not. I don't think any person can do all of that. I think maybe they can. Oh, I like shut off this
Yeah.
particular thing, but I don't think there's any way that you could completely shut down a country.
Yeah.
And-
From
It's something where, in theory, you could probably work your way to coming up with a plan or at least a concept of how that would be managed. But the feasibility of actually making that follow through is very, very, very slim.
It's
Yeah.
realistic enough where Gabriel's motivation is plausible and believable, and you can get behind it. But then, you know, someone hacking over like literally every system that's broadcasting everything is not.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess if someone brought up how if nowadays if it came up in the news that someone was trying to do this, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not like the most computer tech savvy guy, but you know it's believable enough.
Well, I mean, there are current events that go on, and of course, any kind of like cyber attack that's going to be major enough that gets thwarted is not going to make, you know, mass
Headlines.
media to like,
Right.
you know, prevent hysteria and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this,
Because that would be so much worse.
this is like a reference to slightly later, but the thing that gives it the most credence is the fact that he was.
Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that gives it a little more credibility is the fact that he worked there and he designed the program that they used to store all the stuff and
Yeah.
have all the functions. So I think that's the only thing that allows it to make more sense rather than it just being some hacker guy.
Yeah.
That
And again,
is not related in any way.
they're trying to. This movie is already a little more exaggerated than real life.
Yeah.
So you just kind of go with it.
I can
Right.
suspend my belief on
Yeah.
that.
They
just
they
enjoy
set
the
this
movie.
guy up as like, oh yeah, he's like the best hacker ever.
Hacker extraordinaire.
The best team.
Gabriel,
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of him.
Yeah. That's like Warlock.
Yeah,
Like
but
Warlock's
it's
a great
not-
hacker.
we're not
He's
here
afraid
that-
of Gabriel.
yeah.
No way.
yeah,
Now-
it straddles the fence. You know, it's
Right.
fun, but also, you know, you're invested. There's enough to sink your teeth into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the litmus test, the official litmus test for whether or not this movie is going to go down smooth for you or not, is the helicopter kill.
Yes.
This is like, if you're not down with the helicopter kill, you're not down with the jet sequence in the end. Like it's just like that
Yeah,
is
those
a bridge
are
way too
kind of
far.
tough pills to swallow for me, but
Yeah,
they
those
slip
were-
right under the.
It
the
has to be fun though. It's so fun
Yeah,
to watch.
For me, I'm down with the helicopter kill because it looks
Right.
practically done. It's right there. The jet going under a highway though and shooting at it, I was like, oh, okay, this is.
I think
like-
I'm on the same page as you. I
Yeah.
feel the same way. Yeah.
It did have my favorite quote though,
Yeah.
where Matthew Farrell says, "You just killed a helicopter with a car," and John McClane says, "I was out of bullets."
yeah,
Yeah.
He has so many good lines in this.
I
man.
think while you're watching this film, it really does help the way it's filmed, as I've brought up before, for scenes like this. And I think to help with some of the more difficult scenes, I just thought of it as, well, it's John McClane, and they're using this city as basically a playground. You know, like, what do we get to play with,
Yeah.
you know, in this next
That's
scenario?
perfect because I wrote
Yeah.
down like McClane is like a kid in a candy store in
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah.
Like he is just taking out guys in the most fun and creative ways.
Right.
He's like, this is just another Tuesday.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how he even came up with the idea to launch a car at a helicopter? He's like, "Oh, there's a helicopter out there. Guess
it's
I'll
just-
launch a car at it."
It's just, a car already flipped towards him. Now, you can do anything with cars.
Well, he's just
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna drive up this thing that's not even a ramp." But
No,
I
he
don't
makes
know.
a ramp
He
out
make-
of it.
he
It's
makes his
literally
own
one of
ramp.
those like ticket taker area or the toll booths.
Yeah. That'll work.
It's probably not something I would take a gamble on with my life.
Although apparently they did all that practically, almost all of it.
well,
Practically.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I have to say about this movie. Lynn Wiseman, the director, was adamant that this movie be as practically done as possible. Like there is CGI in this movie, and they were looking at other movies that were coming out this year. They actually looked, I think it was Transformers that they looked at, and they're like, okay, we do not want to look like a Transformers. We're going to be the opposite of that. There's going to be people that go for the big CGI action, and then there's going to be the people that go for the hand-to-hand,
Right.
practically done, stunts and action.
Also, even if people really like the CGI aspect, if this is released at the same time a bunch of other CGI filled movies come out, it will just be like noise. You won't notice anything significant about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And a movie like this, honestly, Die Hard never asked for that.
Yeah.
That's not what this series should be, even when it goes to the more extreme.
It's a practical movie, I feel like, in itself. And you know that it's real when you have a stunt actor get hurt as bad as Bruce Willis's stunt double.
Yeah.
Did you hear about him?
I heard about that.
Yeah, dude, he fell like 25 feet. I thought it was this scene. I can't remember.
No,
but...
I thought it was the elevator shaft scene.
Oh, was it? Okay, I just knew he fell 25 feet and
he broke his arms and his face or something.
Yeah, he broke his face and he had to go to the hospital and they had to stop production for a while.
God.
Yeah, it was intense.
All right, let's move it along here. After McClane pleads for help, Farrell guesses that Gabriel's next target is the power grid, and he and McClane drive to a utility superstation in West Virginia, where AJ is. They find a team led by Lynn taking over the superstation. McClane and Farrell kill the team, and Lynn falls to her death following a struggle with McClane. Enraged over Lynn's death, Gabriel redirects large amounts of natural gas to the utility superstation in an attempt to kill McClane and Farrell, although they are able to escape. So this is when, at the beginning of this is when they send another video package. We see the fake White House explosion. Also, do you think this movie would have been better if that were real, or do you think it's better as the fake out that it was in this movie?
You mean you want the White House to be exploded?
Not in real life. I'm just saying for the stakes of this
Capitol
movie, would
building.
have... Yeah,
Remember
sorry, the
Independence
Capitol
Day?
building. Yeah, that wasn't the White House. Sorry.
That's what I meant.
Thanks for correcting me. Do you think the stakes would have been even more high if that had been a real explosion?
No, I think that would have been jumping the shark too much because it's not their wheelhouse to set explosions in government buildings. I think what they're good is hacking and making videos and doing things
Well, they
that
set
are
up
internal.
They set up C4 with the hackers, and this guy worked with the government.
I
Well,
think
no,
it-
that's much
to-
easier, I think, than an entirement. Like that was like a demolition.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I think that this scene, I like it being a fake out, but I kind of wish it was something that was meant to happen to distract, I don't know, the police or whoever's following them to turn their eye somewhere else.
And maybe to other states it would seem real until the news broke that it wasn't, I guess.
It felt kind of like an empty threat because in the moment, this is a really cool scene. I really like it. And kind of the look of shock on I can't remember the guy's
McClane
name.
and the that other guy that it's one of those that guy actors.
Yeah.
But
I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
I do like him in this though, even though he has a small role. But it
Cliff
was
Curtis
very
as
there you
Bowman.
go. Yeah. But it felt very real. Like there was that sort of world shattering moment where they were able to blow up the Capitol, and so even if you found out, like I'm fine with it not actually happening, but I wish there was something else that happened as a result of that. Like they had a plan.
Yeah, it's never addressed
It's
afterwards,
not really.
really.
Yeah.
I think they're just trying to show what they're capable of doing in terms of manipulation.
or just kind of create that panic.
Yeah.
For everyone.
Yeah, it just didn't seem that. I don't know. They could. I think the severity would have been great if it actually had happened.
Yeah, well, you do realize that they can actually blow things up. Like how they let this natural gas explosion happen at that plant where McClane
Diverted all the
Then why didn't
gas
they?
lines.
Yeah, I don't know. Not important. But let's talk about at the superstation sequence, the West Virginia sequence.
Is this the elevator scene? Like,
No, yeah, we're at that point.
Okay.
Where they've caught up to some of the terrorists and they're trying to reverse hack their operation, and he kills Min Lin. Sorry. Thoughts?
I was so frustrated with her character, but she
But they
she
know
gets-
that.
I know, and that's why I'm okay with this scene because it is nice to see him struggle with a foe, you
Yeah.
know? And you do feel the frustration where you're just like, just die already.
Yeah.
But she literally gets rammed with a car,
Oh, yeah.
but is still able to use her legs.
Yep.
I
didn't
don't
understand
believe that.
Yep.
Like a
Gets
car
up.
drops on her, essentially.
I saw it as like, okay, this movie's ridiculous. McClane needs to get a taste of his own medicine
Yeah.
of someone who's equally as ridiculous as him, just surviving something
Yeah.
that they shouldn't survive. And
Yeah.
there you go. But he does ultimately win over.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
just
some
like-
of the best lines.
It's
ever.
just so funny because when she gets hit by the car, she just gets back up, and she's like, oh, that made me mad, and then
Yeah.
just goes right back to do it, like fighting him.
And he's not going slow, by the way. He's
Right.
crashing through walls and like.
It's
Well,
hilarious.
I also noticed that a lot of movies around this time, it was almost like they were afraid to have a woman look a little too beat up, you
Yeah.
know? Like
She's very clean throughout this whole
yeah,
thing.
it always felt like in a lot of action films where a woman was involved, they somehow had this mysterious shield around them where they just didn't get as beaten up or bruised as
Yeah.
the men around them. I don't know if it was just sort of that seemed inappropriate or
Yeah.
what.
And then they'd have this oily sheen across their bodies from sweat, but none of their makeup or anything is distorted.
Yeah, they look perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have two women in this that don't ever really get banged up all that much, but are,
That
you know,
like that I would say they are abused, but for some reason they just didn't really follow that detail in makeup, or I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But
I don't know.
McClane looks like he's been dragged through a whole bunch of debris, but
that's just a thing that carries on throughout
Yeah.
all the movies. He's always like streaked in
he's
blood
always
at the
going
end
to
of
be
every
like
movie.
that.
Justin Long, I guess he gets a little beat up. He gets shot in the knee. But
Yeah, that hurt.
Oh, that was rough.
yeah, I mean, that's not this sequence, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about.
Yeah.
I feel like McClane is the only one that really gets truly messed
Oh
up,
yeah,
though.
he's the major one, but he's also the one that's making it through each and every battle, rather than like, because everyone who encounters him once is demolished eventually, and he just lives through each of those 1v1s.
Yeah.
But also, around this portion, you get to learn a little bit more, or see a little bit more of Thomas Gabriel's personality. And he definitely seems sociopathic in that, like,
Yeah.
he gets really mad, but not.
He doesn't ever quite completely lose his cool.
Yeah.
But he's like, Tom McClane really pushes
He's
him.
kind of
to-
unhinged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's not even that unhinged, because he's still making the calculating decision. He's just
Right.
he's
a robot.
reckless. He's reckless with what he does, and I guess you could say that is unhinged in a way. But as far as whenever his actions are usually something that he's calculated.
His
Yeah.
character comes across to me as a narcissist.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
just
He's very proud of what he's done.
exactly, and that's kind of like why he's still putting his stamp on this.
Yeah, and
where,
there's a scene too
Yeah.
where Farrell
no, yeah,
comments on his plan when he actually finally sees it, and he says it's genius, and he's like, I know.
yeah. He's super narcissist, unlike the other villains, and that's kind of why he's so punchable in my mind. Which is good. It's a good thing.
Yeah,
that he is.
they know that
Yeah.
that's what you want to see in a Die Hard movie. You want to see a villain that you just want to punch his nose.
Right.
And what this movie does so wisely is they drag out that villain's suffering throughout the
Right.
movie, of McClane constantly imminently getting closer
I know,
to
I
him
love that.
and being like, at the perfect moment, the cherry on top of all this is the phone call where he calls McClane or he calls Lynn.
Yeah.
And McClane answers, and the line is something like, "Oh, you're looking for your girlfriend? Wait, sorry, where do I have it here?
Bottom
Last
of
time
a
I saw her
elevator
was she was
shaft.
at the bottom of an elevator shaft with an SUV shoved up her.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a line. Wow.
But it was like, and just seeing his face, and Timothy Olyphant sells it completely, where it's just like, oh yeah, he is mad.
He does a lot with a little, in the sense that, like, he's pretty much remote the whole entire time,
Right.
except for the very end. Like, he's not out like Hans Gruber was, going in the trenches impersonating somebody on the front lines. Like, he's behind a screen, behind a phone, whatever, but you get the
Right.
sense that he, like you said, his ego has been challenged and he feels like he has been wronged. So this is a personal vendetta for him.
Right.
Not just like
Yeah.
a cash grab, not just whatever, high and mighty political thing. This is like a revenge for him. It's
Yeah.
personal. So
yeah,
like,
and I would say this. Yeah, go ahead.
no, just like it really sells his character, even though he's not moving from place to place like crazy, physically.
Right.
Yeah, this almost one-ups the situation between McClane and Gruber in the first film, where he takes out all of Gruber's men over the course of the film, but there's no one that is really personally close to Gruber in any way.
Right.
And I'm not saying there needs to be in the first film, but this one kind of like ups it to where like, oh, McClane actually shoved a dagger metaphorically
Yeah.
into the villain's ribs.
Yeah.
Throughout the film, and it's like, oh, he actually had a personal, close, romantic connection to that person that just died.
Yeah, you see
Yeah.
the pain on his face. Like it's
Yeah.
hurting
Yeah.
him.
But
Well, he almost, in my mind, has this sort of, that was my toy you just broke.
that's
that's
that-
my
exactly
toy.
that's
Arena.
that's the mood I
That's
get
what
from him.
That's true. I
That's
didn't really think about that.
His
that's
property.
exactly what I was thinking. I saw an extremely superficial relationship in that because it's,
And it's
like,
like,
ooh, you're hot. Let's
it
make
is-
out real quick
it is
before you go on a mission for me.
Yeah, it is a romantic relationship, like that's understood because she also is very intelligent and very smooth.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I did appreciate about Maggie Q's performance was I like her role as sort of the voice of their operation because often women's voices are going to be more trustworthy than men's. So
Yeah.
that it just makes a lot of sense for what they're trying to do. But
That's true.
yeah, so I like her as almost sort of a, what's the term, grifter or what
think
was
that's
it?
it.
Is
I
it
think-
grifter?
Yeah,
Yeah, anyway.
I think.
Something like that. But just sort of like the voice of the operation and she
Like
also had
directing
a
the traffic
she,
and all that.
she also had a punchable face in my mind.
Yeah.
So she carries that role pretty well, as small as it is.
She almost had a
But,
T-1000 vibe about her.
Yeah, she did.
I totally agree. Like
She
just this
did.
unstoppable force, and she's honestly a great addition to this movie, or inclusion in this movie.
Right.
I like a foe that McClane actually struggles with
Yes.
instead of all these faceless, peons that he just
Running out of
dispatches
henchmen.
with no issue whatsoever.
It was kind of cool. He didn't ever have a real fight with the main villain in this
Yeah, there's
one.
the guy that he calls like Spider Boy, but he deals with that guy a lot easier. Sorry,
Yeah.
a lot easier than he does her.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on top of that, later on, I thought it was really interesting that with Thomas Gabriel, they decided to. So he has like an immediate jerk reaction to explode McClane,
blow him
right?
up.
To blow him up, and that's like it's personal. Like, okay, I want you dead.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever he gets his daughter, yes, he's using her as a chip, but he doesn't torture her. He doesn't treat her like
terribly, I
Terribly.
guess, even though he does totally punch her or slap her in the face.
what.
Yeah.
After she revealed like there's 4 left, get him.
5, yeah, but yeah,
5, whatever. And at that point, he's frustrated. But whenever he's usually dealing with her, he's not extremely torturous. He doesn't kill her in revenge.
You get the sense that he's a guy that doesn't like. He likes his people to do that type of business
Yeah,
for him.
Right.
He doesn't like to directly do it.
Yeah.
But if he has to in the final moment, he will.
Yeah.
But he's a little hesitant to actually get physically involved.
It
in
was
Yes, I
very
agree.
satisfying when he did get involved, and the moment where he's trying to get the daughter to say whatever, and then she ends up turning on him. His face when she does, he's like,
Come on.
Are
Yeah,
you kidding me?"
I loved his reactions to both of them. Just like guy, it was almost like he was thinking they were on his side.
Jeez.
He was like, can you tell your dad to just like,
Stop.
be reasonable?
Yeah, and that's in the next portion of the plot. So that is when we'll talk about Mary Elizabeth Winstead and all that.
Right.
But before we move on to that, how plausible do you think this whole natural gas explosion is?
I don't think.
I'm actually specifically directing this towards AJ because you're the knowledge bank kind of. Is this something that could actually happen? Could you direct all of the natural gas to a superstation and blow something up like this?
No, so utilities especially like have so many levels of redundancy like especially like electrical grid, like substations. Like there's so many checks and rechecks on things to isolate events on multiple levels of failure. So
Yeah. So not possible.
I mean, unless in this scenario, like he's got total control over like every single system. So I guess somehow he could bypass something, but then you still got mechanical failure points and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Still, it makes for a cool explosion. Looks like a lot of money went into this sequence where everything's blown up. They jump in the van and it gets blown aside.
The other thing is, even if you could pull all of that gas, you'd have to have something to ignite it too. So
Yeah.
I don't know what was there that ignited it into
Just sheer excess of gas.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have enough pressure, that does increase the heat.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
eventually,
Yeah.
too much pressure
Yeah, I
will
guess.
combust. But
It was rather quick for
This is
that,
a cool
though.
sequence, though. I don't think they could have gotten out of there, though. They're looking outside, and the explosions are rapidly getting towards them.
Here they come.
And like suddenly they're like 3 stories down into the van. It's like, okay, well, I guess
This is
y'all
fine.
made it. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's this movie.
Yeah.
We'll go with it.
Basically, if you see John McClane, get out of town. Like
Yeah.
you don't want to be
Get out of
there.
town.
Or literally glue yourself to him.
Yeah.
One or the other.
All right, let's continue with the story. McClane and Farrell then travel by helicopter to the home of hacker Frederick Warlock Kaludis. Warlock identifies the piece of code Farrell wrote for Lynn as a means to access data at a Social Security Administration building at Woodlawn, Maryland. Warlock tells them that Gabriel was a top security expert for the U.S. Department of Defense. Gabriel attempted to alert the department to weaknesses that made America's network infrastructure vulnerable to cyber warfare, but his unorthodox methods led to his dismissal. Warlock runs a tracer route and identifies Gabriel's location. Gabriel taps into their connection and reveals that he has located McClane's estranged daughter, Lucy, whom he kidnaps. McClane sends an image of Gabriel to the FBI. It is revealed that the Woodlawn building is actually an NSA facility intended to back up the nation's personal and financial records in the event of a cyber attack, which was designed by Gabriel himself. The attack on the FBI prompted a download of financial data to Woodlawn, which Gabriel hopes to steal. All right, so this is when the tables are turned and Gabriel essentially kidnaps Lucy, and this is when Mary Elizabeth Winstead comes into the film. We get a brief tease of her character at the beginning, which, kind of rubbed me the wrong way towards her character. I didn't get... I wanted to know more of why she hates McClane so much.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't much insight into that.
He's just a bad dad.
But I do think she starts to redeem herself a bit here.
Yeah.
Although I also got the sense that, like, oh, she's only a McClane when it's convenient to her.
Right.
Because she's in danger. So, okay, now I acknowledge that I'm a McClane and my dad will help me out here. So I would have liked a little more light shed on, why she hates her dad so much. What did he do? What was up with the divorce situation between him and Gennaro? I forget her first name.
Holly.
I probably should know that. Holly, that's right. But, I think she does a decent job. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think with the role that she's given, she does a good job. I believe her. I believe that she's really mad at him. But I would like to see a little bit more of their relationship, or at least just a scene more of what their dynamic is outside of her throes of fury when he pulls her boyfriend out of the car.
I feel like she is a McClane. Like, she actually acts like how I imagine a daughter of
And that's
Bruce
what I
Willis
think
would.
they were going for.
I do love that first
especially later
interaction in the opening sequence.
Right.
Between that boyfriend.
Yep.
He's like, chicks, right? Shut up.
He just looks at him. He's like, I'll get in my car.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, at the beginning, she kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But then later on, she did seem, as David says, a lot more like a McClane.
Yeah. In her defense, that it is, I wouldn't imagine it would be easy for. I'm guessing that her father, John McClane, because of all the work he does, he was just never really there. Mm-hmm. And someone from her perspective wouldn't be able to understand why. And the fact that he essentially hounds her, watches every move that she makes just to make sure she's safe, would be frustrating. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, why are you
And how he never
so
approves
involved
of any guy
now?
that she's with.
Yeah.
He's like,
So,
no matter what.
like, I could understand the irritation, but for the audience's sake, it would be nice to get a little more of a peek into her brain, I would say.
Yeah. Agreed. So let's move on to Kevin Smith, who's in this briefly as Warlock. He's the hacker friend to Farrell.
Did he have any form of control over this movie in any way? Like, did he help in any way?
He did towards the end.
I thought he had some sort of production work on this. I thought.
In the actual production of the movie. No, he kind of
Uncredited rewrites.
he
to
wrote
his own
some of his
scene.
own lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, I thought for some reason it was more involved.
Yeah, and this would be the start of a, tumultuous relationship between him and Bruce Willis. He directed the movie Cop Out with Bruce Willis and that guy from 30 Rock. I forget his name.
Alec Baldwin?
No.
There's so many people.
He's the
from 30
EGOT.
Rock.
He's the EGOT guy. Never mind.
Yep.
But anyway, apparently Bruce Willis is such a prickly person to work with, and Kevin Smith hated working with him. But which you thought he would have had some insight into how it would be to work with Bruce Willis on the set of this film.
They did a whole scene together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did a little more than that. It had to be a couple days, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But whatever.
It sounds like he was getting into character. Because
I-
John McClane is a little prickly.
Yeah. I do love the scene, though, where it's Farrell and Warlock and McClane. And Farrell's like, you see what I've been dealing with? Like when he makes some sort of, reference to something that they're looking at on the computer screen. I like that.
Yeah.
It was a good juxtaposition of, completely different characters.
Yeah, different
Right.
eras.
Yeah, and their approaches to what they're doing.
We finally
right.
got a reversal. We're in, the hacker world now where McClane is on his back foot, like he's uncomfortable in it, so.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, you a fan of the Fett? He's like, no, I'm more of a Star Wars guy. It's like, okay. See what I'm dealing with?
So, do you think that you would go by the name Warlock instead of Freddy?
It was War 1 OCK.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Warlock.
It's
duh.
just his tag.
War Tinnock.
I love gamer tag ideas.
Yeah.
Or no, it was War Tinnock.
I think
Something like whatever. I'll stop.
It is kind of interesting how this movie sort of continues that theme of McClane kind of representing a certain generation.
Yeah.
And he was that way in Die Hard as well, but he was representing the, working class man almost, and the average Joe, kind of this American feeling. But now, as he's aged, there's sort of a new era of technology, and he's sort of in the background behind it all, but kind of like humming and hawing about how, like, oh, you guys, like, you think you're so great. Well, I
and your
I
toys.
could beat you in your own house, like kind of.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Like,
very much.
I will beat you to death in your own house.
It's
I think
very
he says.
much an old man approach to the kind of like flippant
Yeah.
attitude
Yeah.
of younger generations. Yeah.
It's perfectly displayed in that scene, I feel
Right.
like, where it's like, yeah, y'all are from completely different eras.
Right.
But I like it. So this is when I feel like it's more cleared up as to what Gabriel's plan is. He's less in it to render the U.S. back to like a Stone Age level, and he's more just they're just getting the money.
As it always is.
Yeah.
In
So
Die
this
Hard.
is they're cyber burglars. That's
I thought you were going to do it for this other reason. Nah, it's just for the money.
yeah.
Just like every movie.
Which didn't really click because like he instantly like manipulated McClane's like 401k and all his financial records. So if they have that level of access, like why didn't they just do
Yeah.
that directly?
Yeah.
Right.
I
I'm
don't
not
think
sure.
the movie wants you to question that.
Well, it's like, might as well bring down the whole government and economy while we're at it.
Yeah. And I wonder why this film is kind of pulling its punches in that regard, where it's like not going full on into like the worst of the worst situation. And do you think this kind of calls back to the first film in Die Hard, where John McTiernan is like, we don't like terrorists because they're too serious. Burglars are more fun.
Yeah.
Do you think that like plays a part in this movie?
Yeah.
Because even though they are still terrorists. They kill people, but they're
Right.
like, no, we just want money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like 3 out of the 4 movies we've talked about so far, it's been about the money.
Yeah.
1, 3, and 4. Like they got the gold bars in the third one.
Are
Like,
you
that was
sure
their-
2 wasn't about money?
2 was no. They were just like getting that general.
Oh yeah, it was all
Remember?
about transport.
No, but
in general.
that was about money because he was part of a drug thing.
Right.
I guess, but it's more indirect.
Yeah, that one is a little more complicated than, oh, you thought we were terrorists, but really we're robbers.
Yeah. I guess that keeps it, it's lighter, it's a little more fun that way. It's a breezy summer blockbuster. You don't want to get into too serious territory, I suppose.
And what year did this come out again?
2007.
2007.
Post 9/11.
It was actually
Yeah.
AJ. It was pushed back to 2007, or the production of it took its time because of 9/11.
I wonder if that still plays a role. If
Probably.
having terrorists was still a little too touchy.
No, you're probably right.
Yeah.
So it's probably a smart choice, honestly.
And maybe that's why they didn't fully blow up the Capitol. Maybe they just decided, no, that would be a little too
I was
harsh.
just gonna
Where
say that,
it will
too.
just be a video.
Yeah, maybe that was the right choice.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. All right. Y'all ready to move on? Finish this story up?
Yeah.
McClane and Farrell race to the Woodlawn facility. Farrell discovers one of Gabriel's men downloading financial information and manages to encrypt the data before he is captured. Gabriel then takes Farrell and Lucy with him as his team flees. McClane pursues Gabriel, hijacking the semi-mobile base. Gabriel accesses the communication system of an F-35B Lightning II, which I don't know what the heck that is, but sure, and orders the pilot to attack. It's a jet, guys. It's a jet.
It's the floaty board.
And orders the pilot to attack the truck McClane is driving. The jet is destroyed by falling debris, and McClane survives and sees Gabriel's vehicle pull into a nearby hangar. There, Gabriel demands that Farrell decrypt the financial data. When Farrell refuses, Gabriel shoots him in the knee and threatens to kill Lucy. McClane arrives and kills 2 of Gabriel's henchmen, but is himself shot in the shoulder by Gabriel's henchman, Emerson. Gabriel positions himself behind McClane, putting the barrel of the gun in his shoulder wound. McClane then pulls the trigger. The bullet travels through McClane's shoulder and hits Gabriel in the chest, killing him. Farrell grabs a handgun and kills Emerson. Afterwards, McClane thanks Farrell for saving Lucy's life. And there's also a little, romantic teasing there between Farrell and Lucy, but that's not discussed here in the plot synopsis. So there you go.
Yeah.
Let's just say unnecessary.
It was just
fine.
a lighthearted thing. I don't think it was
Yeah,
taking itself seriously.
Yeah, they were just asking about each other. It wasn't even like...
Yeah.
I guess it didn't make sense to me. I think they were trying to force a connection, so Matt Farrell and Bruce Willis had sort of a connection. I don't know. It was just kind of like, hey, we like each other.
Well,
All right.
I think it was sort of just in that age group.
Yeah.
You're just kind of hyper aware of the only guy or the only girl in your situation, and the fact that they went through something so extreme, it probably softened their eyes upon each other. I guess that
Yeah.
sounds like
kinda
it's
like
a
it.
weird sentence, but
I do kind of like it, though, because it brings the movie full circle
Yeah.
from the first time you see McClane interacting with one of her, potential romantic interests.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, you're kind of breaking McClane down a little. He's been with this Farrell guy. He trusts him.
Yeah.
And even though he's still, like, totally apprehensive
like
about
stay
any
away
of that,
from my daughter.
And
it's like,
simultaneously repositions him as the father figure, the family man,
Right.
which, is
Yeah.
important to his character.
yeah, and it brings it
Exactly.
to a satisfying close.
Yeah, I guess in that way, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So let's talk about all the crazy stuff that
Yes.
goes down here.
a lot of crazy stuff.
This is where I do think the movie jumps the shark, even in
Yes.
regards to how heightened it already is. I don't think it kills the movie for me in any way. I'm still having a great time, but the whole jet sequence, the 18-wheeler sequence,
Yeah.
I thought was a bridge too far. It's just so ridiculous.
It is cool, though.
It is cool. Like, I'm okay if you involve a jet in this situation, that's fine. But the point where it goes under the highway and
Yeah.
it just starts shooting at him, and I don't think a fighter pilot would just fire missiles all wanton crazily at...
Okay, maybe, but as a kid, I will say I did not know how fighter jets worked. That didn't actually bother me at all.
I'm not
Right.
saying they can't do something like that. I'm just saying
Well,
they would
yeah.
not
Could be
do
5
something.
In
feet
a
off of the
civilian in a civilian area, like even if there is a terrorist, usually like I don't know.
Man, if you have your orders, you're gonna do it.
No. But getting that call where he says like you have permission to fire, yeah, that would send a red flag where you're thinking, wait a minute, there's a precaution about this. Usually they say no, don't fire. There are civilians in this area.
Danger
like
close.
we'll lead them out to a desolate area. Like that's what happens. You have to.
This
do
guy
that.
was like, minivan with kids? Don't mind
Don't
if I
mind
do.
if I do. I've been waiting for this my whole life.
It
Baby
is
on
funny
board.
though with
Great.
the F-35, it was like the new like cutting edge jet at the time,
Right.
and this movie actually, ironically, the hacking of its comm system predated an actual issue with this jet.
That's so weird.
And it's like 8 million lines of code in the new. It was the whole, fly by wire. It existed, but it was like the new technology of the generation for this. The
That's
military
pretty cool.
in service, but it was still susceptible to that kind of attack, which they found out later on. And so this movie, ironically, unknowingly, was kind of on the nose for an
Interesting.
actual issue with the F-35.
So, do you think that the people got the idea from this movie? They're like, "Oh man, we should."
No,
have
No,
a
he's
jet."
saying it was coincidental.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It's more of a
Yeah.
joke. I just think it'd be funny if someone was just watching this movie. It's like, man, I should hack a jet.
Wow, that's so it works out in this movie's favor weirdly. Though I do think they take it to an unnecessarily extreme degree.
Well-
The most hilarious point
Yeah.
is when
No,
the
go ahead.
highway, the second highway up falls down and the
Yeah.
18-wheeler drives up that thing. I'm like,
Well,
come
also
on.
at this point, if you had been told to shoot or fire at this vehicle, it's stopped. It's on a bridge that's collapsing. You would
Yeah.
think, oh, my work is
No,
done.
it's done.
Like, you can back off now. But no, he's like, no, I really got to shoot this one guy.
What's dumb about that scene is they didn't need to show it driving up that ramp. Like,
No.
because he ends up, it doesn't end up going anywhere anyway. He just jumps on the jet after that because then it like slides back down. Remember that?
Yeah.
It's like all you needed to was have the jet there, and if you really want to have your scene where McClane jumps on a jet, you
Yeah.
could still do that.
I think it's just that this movie is constantly throwing in visual references from all the other films. And like you have to have a helicopter, you have to have an elevator shaft, and you have to have him jumping onto a plane wing or something, It's just
something ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think they just kind of updated it to,
Yeah.
how would he get into this scenario this time?
Again, it doesn't kill the movie. It's just like, oh, that's
was
a hard
close for
pill to
me.
swallow, as you said.
Right.
It's just like that. It's like that scene from Die Hard 2 for me, where he just ejects out of the plane after
Yeah.
50 grenades were thrown in there.
It's what this movie so far had done such a good job, and we've mentioned this before, where you feel the pain, you feel the struggle. In this, you can't, because it's so far removed from reality that you just don't you don't get it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why it's going to this extreme at this
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. It brings it back down.
Yeah. I think the one takeaway from that scene that I do like is I'm enjoying having a villain that McClane is actually getting under their skin visibly to the point
Yes.
where he's making mistakes.
Yeah.
Like the villain is making mistakes where his
Well, he's starting to get desperate.
yeah,
and
he's
just
getting
like,
desperate, and his emotions are taking over, where
Yeah.
you could already tell he wasn't in great control of his emotions
Yeah,
to begin
even though
with.
at this point he has like 2 chips on
Right.
in like at this point he has Farrell and Lucy.
Right.
And he still is like, oh, I can't kill these people because
Yeah.
I need them as
Yeah.
leverage, and McClane is constantly
he's
calling him
actually
out on that.
worried. Yeah.
I did.
Sorry, I did want to talk about that parkour sequence with that guy who's jumping around the vents and killing it just doing all these showy moves, and then all McClane does is like hits a lever and he falls into that shred or whatever.
It's very much Raiders of the Lost Ark, like with Indiana Jones shooting the guy with all the fancy sword gimmicks.
But this was another perfect McClane moment, though. When he falls through the shredder, McClane's like, "Oh no!" Like his line was like so perfectly delivered from him.
I just love the thing I enjoy about that too is that there's so many movies that rely heavily upon gimmicks, or we really have to show really fancy footwork to be impressive. But McClane is just whatever gets the job done. Like I just want to get out of here, kind of a thing.
The movie's so smart because it's showing this cool parkour sequence, but you're seeing it through McClane's eyes, and he's like, "Look at this guy and all of his gimmicks.
I know.
I'm just gonna pull."
He's
this
wasting
lever.
a lot of energy, just
it was so
flinging
good.
himself around everywhere.
I didn't mean to backspace and go to that moment. I just wanted to call it out.
I do appreciate though.
Yep. And we've also had all 4 movies have elevator shaft scenes. Fun fact.
Actually, that was Lynn Wiseman's idea to insert all of that there. I was watching the special features, and he thought that one thing that was inherently Die Hard is having McClane, at least, even when you blow the size of the movie out into a wider set, you still want to have those enclosed spaces where McClane is having to work his way through an environment that is claustrophobic. Area. Yes. So that was his insertion into this movie.
I again like to point out that Matthew Farrell is a good character, and I really like he's kind of got this cowardice about him. He doesn't want to do anything. Then later, he has a chance to leave, and McClane's like, "Nah, you're out of this one, pretty much."
Yeah, and honestly, Lucy helped him get to that too. She
that was
called
later.
him out. Where it's like, you got to dig deep and find your balls or something. She says something like that, and I think he took that to heart.
Here's the thing, though. I actually don't think that she even needed to say anything. I think he already was doing what he could. He was already investigating the stuff on his own. He was already trying to set up his network by himself when he was separated from McClane rather than hiding somewhere. He then denies the guy entry to the hacking thing. And the only reason, even after getting shot, the only reason he allows or starts to rehack the network and solve the problem is because he's threatening Lucy's life. And even then, he's stalling for time.
Yeah.
So what I like about him is that he also is showing that he's being resourceful, even though he can't, go all brawn and punch people in the face.
Another thing that I like to him, in comparison to other McClane sidekicks, is they actually have these heart-to-hearts. Like, there's a heart-to-heart before they make it to the green lawn that I didn't talk about, where Farrell's asking, why are you that guy? Why are you the hero? And I should have touched on this more, but this was an honest introspection into what makes McClane tick.
Yeah, you literally read my mind with that quote, because I was exactly thinking of that. And I have that line if you want.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, read it.
All right, so McClane says, "You know what you get for being a hero? Nothing. You get shot at. You get a little pat on the back, blah, 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 attaboy. You get divorced. Your wife can't remember your last name. Your kids don't want to talk to you. You get to eat a lot of meals by yourself. Trust me, kid, nobody wants to be that guy." And then Farrell says, "Then why are you doing this?" McClane says, "Because there's nobody else to do it right now. That's why. Believe me, if there was somebody else to do it, I'd let him do it, but there's not. So we're doing it."
Yes, and that is
a good
the
line.
best line in the movie, and it's what lifts this movie above the other sequels and up closer to the first film for me, because they actually try to dissect his character a little bit. They try to get into why he is in the role that he is, why he's the hero of the story. Yeah. And it comes full circle in the end, too, because McClane tells Farrell, Farrell's questioning what he has just done, and Farrell's and McClane's like, "Well, that's what makes you that guy, because you did what you did in that situation."
Yeah, at your own detriment.
Yeah, and I thought there was, there's substance to this movie, even though it is, on the surface, a dumb action film.
Right.
So yeah, you said it perfectly. So we have our final action sequence. McClane shoots through his own wound to kill the guy behind him.
That was one of my favorite things when I first watched this growing up. I thought it was so badass. It's shooting himself. I also learned a little bit about anatomy when that happened. Because I was like, why didn't he die?
Yeah, because his heart.
Because it went through his shoulder. At the time, I thought if you just get shot, you die.
If you get shot in the chest, you're done.
No, that's only for henchmen.
This is one of the few things that I remember from watching it. Way back when, I always remember thinking, man, wouldn't it have sucked if it had just lodged another bullet in there?
Yeah.
And it just didn't go through at all. I was like, that would have been
It's like,
rough.
what? Multiple shots. Bang, bang. Keep going.
Breakthrough.
But yeah, it was a satisfying and simple end to this story. I'm glad they didn't even escalate the stakes higher.
Yeah.
It ended in this, intimate shootout where it's pretty tense. You've got a lot of chess pieces on the chessboard, and you're like, okay, where is everyone? What's going to happen? And I was satisfied with how it all played out.
Yeah.
How about y'all?
Yeah, I
I
think it
thought
played
it
out
was
perfectly.
a good conclusion.
I think I was glad that this is how it was wrapped up after such a extravagant scene as, just the whole jet and then the truck and everything that just seemed like a bit much, but this ending kind of brought it back down to earth for me where there's a busted kneecap from a gunshot. McClane's like dragging himself across the ground because he literally cannot muster up the strength to get up.
Yeah.
And so you're rooting for him. You're like, come on, you can do it. Don't let him shoot you. Or, I really like that moment because I'm really on the edge of my seat. Even though I know how the movie plays out, you're still feeling it today.
It's
So-
kind of like his cowboy
Yeah.
moment, like
Yeah.
that he has in
Yeah.
all
His
of his
rallying.
movies. Yeah, he has to somehow go through hell,
Right.
and barely make it through. Get his yippee ki line out and
Yeah.
win. Like, that's the moment.
And we saw the unrated version. I don't know if you did, AJ, and it's in all of its uncensored glory.
Ugh, one of my favorite yippee ki
But yeah, then the movie ends, cuts to credits. We get our Creedence Clearwater. Perfect.
Yeah.
I enjoyed myself with this.
I
Yeah.
did too.
Obviously.
I guess we'll find out how much you liked it.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts on the story here before we move on to the next section of this podcast?
No.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other end, we're going to review this film, get into what the critics thought, do some box office, and then talk about this franchise as a whole. Welcome back. We're here to talk about Live Free or Die Hard and give it our reviews and all that other good stuff.
All that junk.
David, you got our scores in a little bowl there. You want to pull one at random?
I sure do. Let's start with AJ with an 8.
All right.
So this was actually tougher than I thought, because I thoroughly enjoyed myself with this movie. It was fun, despite the dumbness of what many people might be taken out of the experience based off all the cheesiness or whatnot. But I was with it pretty much the whole way. We've covered, and I'm glad Reese was on the same page with me. Is like there's still gems of McClane here, and that's what I really appreciate most about this franchise. When that's done well, that's where these movies really shine, in my opinion. The action is action. You can find that in a lot of movies, but finding a true character, the family man, the everyday man, fighting on his own, kind of doing the brute force and the street smarts against the new technology and everything else going against him. Like that's the story that I enjoy watching. And then we have the kind of surrogate family drama here with Lucy, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead's kind of a soft spot for me, so that didn't hurt me enjoy this movie. But
Yeah, you're a Scott Pilgrim fan, aren't you?
yeah, a little bit.
Oh, for some reason I thought you were like a big fan of that. I
No,
could be
I'm being
completely wrong.
sarcastic. You'd say, what's the
little
line?
bit.
Another evil X waiting to happen, something like that. I think that's the line.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's besides the point. It's just a shame that this last little action sequence with the truck and the highway and the F-35, like that came very close to kind of just killing it for me, because, I was on board with it, even with the tunnel scene and everything else that was borderline too much, but I kind of wish they'd rein themselves in a little bit. And I actually enjoyed the dynamic between director Bowman and McClane as well. And it was enjoyable to see, that dynamic. And we still have that. We talked about the enclosed spaces, but we also have the same motif of the radio chatter and always being in, communication with some kind of radio, remote, whatever.
Yeah, cell phone.
In every movie. So they really like maintain the spirit of Die Hard here, and I was very close to an 8.5. That last little bit kind of knocked it down a little bit for me, unfortunately. But very fun movie for me. But we still get the heart of McClane and Die Hard.
Perfect.
All right. Well said. Next up, Noah with an 8 as well.
Hey, yeah. I thought it was a really entertaining movie, and I can forget some of the grotesquely fake action sequences for the sake of just fun. And yeah, I think, weirdly, the helicopter scene didn't bother me as much. I know it's really ridiculous, and that would never, ever happen. But it's just, I think if they had left it at that one scene that's like, oh, that's ridiculous, then I would have been okay. But like AJ said, the truck scene with the freaking jet is just like, why? Outside of that, though, I really like all the characters. I like their dynamics with each other. I like the McClane side of things, as always. And I think it's a good movie. So I owe you a beer.
Better than expected.
I'll take it.
All right. Next up, Irina with an 8.5.
All right.
Yeah, which I believe was my same score for Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
third one.
I always just want to say 2, 3, or 4, whatever. But I really enjoy this movie as far as you can just put it on and really know that you're going to get sucked in again to the story and what's happening in each scene. I find it very easy for my eyes to glaze over as I'm watching action-packed movies because it's like, oh, I've seen all this before. But I kind of like the playfulness of this film as far as like what new toys do we get to use this time, and what will McClane do in this scenario. How bloodied up will he get by the end? I think this film added a certain rawness by the end of it that I've always appreciated in my favorite parts of the Die Hard franchise in general. And I love the more intimate settings as opposed to the large scenes having to do with open streets and just sort of jumping through buildings or over roofs and things like that. But I think what this one swapped out with the previous film was it did teeter a little more on the ridiculous, and that always kind of knocks things down a peg for me. Like, we're all mentioning the truck scene with the jet, and yes, that is the one. I can forgive the car into a helicopter, that's fine, but it really does pull you out of it. It doesn't feel the same as the rest of the film. It really is jarring. However, I think that the focus on John McClane as a person, he's brought more to life in this film, in my opinion, than he was in Die Hard with a Vengeance. Like, he's kind of just agitatedly teaming up with someone else in the other film. They sort of kind of try to throw in this, oh, you need to call your wife and make amends, but it's like that doesn't feel like the real focus, even though it was kind of just shoehorned in. But in this one, I felt like I got back in touch with his character, and you feel a lot more for him.
Yeah.
Also, the villain, I think, is a little stronger as far as a direct opposition. I like seeing the kind of flicker of weakness on the opponent's side where you're like, yeah, all right.
That's what makes these fun.
He's sinking his teeth into this guy. Yeah, that's really satisfying to watch. So, yeah, overall, 8.5. Still not as good as Die Hard, but I think for as long a gap as there was between movies, they did a really good job.
It's one of the better outcomes you could have hoped for.
Really, really, though. So that's my review.
All right. Next up is David with an 8.5. We're all very consistent. I like it.
Yep.
It's one that I had trouble putting a number on because I think there is more nostalgia in this movie. And I didn't even realize how much it carried over from my childhood. I watched it a lot and then went many years without seeing it again somehow. It's just not one of those ones that popped up. And seeing it again really brought me back. And there's something about this that's that is just more engaging than some of the other ones we watched. I really, really think that Bruce Willis found himself again in this movie. I think that the type of action sequences appeal to a child, in me that likes to see stupid over the top.
Yeah, it's like all
action.
ages almost.
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, like I'm very good at suspending disbelief. Like I don't care as long as you do it well and it looks cool. Like whatever, this is a stupid action movie. What do I care? Like I don't know. It's pew pew pew, shoot shoot. Got got it.
Those are
That
noises.
was awesome.
Are you gonna keep that?
I think your disbelief is plenty. I can't even talk anymore. I'm still reeling
You
after
broke
what you just
AJ, David.
I broke AJ.
said. I think your disbelief
Sorry.
is plenty suspended.
Yeah.
Basically, I just hacked you all with what that was. It sounded like noises, but actually, it was an audio code breaker.
You just
All
called
right.
BMW
It worked.
OnStar on me to start the car. Even though all the cell
Please.
phone network
My
traffic
dad
is
is
built.
dying. Yes. Yeah. But it was just a fun movie. I give it an 8.5. I think it holds up and is very comparable to the first movie for me. They're very different. It has its own flair, but it kept the heart of what you want in Die Hard movies. So I can't really ask for much more.
Cool.
You know what else might appeal to you in this movie is this shares a cinematographer with a certain other movie.
No way.
Spider-Man.
Wait.
Why?
Was-
Guess that.
Did I
iRobot.
just get this weird feeling?
Oh, I could
that
see
they're-
that.
It is iRobot
with-
and go
Stealing
for it, Noah.
AJ's point.
I just get a good feeling that they're good with like snow and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that
Yetis?
nature.
There's no Yetis in this movie, though. Unfortunately.
You're right.
Not yet.
Like that movie that David gave a 7 to, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Yeah, there it was.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, same cinematographer as iRobot, which I can definitely see the similarity here. Cool.
By the way, I love that movie. iRobot.
I need to revisit it. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it in so long.
It was around the same time frame as this that I was into both.
Yeah, I want to say this one was 2004.
Yeah,
Or
iRobot.
iRobot was 2004.
Yeah, it was definitely earlier, but
Yeah.
close enough. All right, so last but not least, Reese coming on top with a 9.
Yeah, and
Did you
this
say that differently?
Reese on top with a 9.
Okay, no.
Reese
Never mind.
has a 9. Reese, he's giving it a 9, guys.
Reese has a 9.
it's fun. This could be like bias at play, but this is my second known Die Hard experience growing up. Like this, it was Die Hard 1 and then this. And this seemed like an evolution of what the original Die Hard was. Actually, this movie is like, it's a greatest hits of everything that is Die Hard after seeing all the Die Hard films. You have the expanded scope of the third film, which took it to the cityscapes of New York. You have the ridiculous action of Die Hard 2, which I thought was the best executed element of the second one. If you're going full on, it did. Like it had, the action in that movie was
It
extreme.
was ridiculous, but it was well done.
And then you have the everyman of Die Hard 1. Like, I do feel like a lot of those everyman qualities are exemplified in the older, wearier McClane that we have here. Yeah. And I think this is his second best performance as the character. I know I'm going to take flack for that because I know there's a lot of fans of 2 and 3. But really, like, he really seems completely dialed into this performance. He wears his older, wrinklier skin well in this movie, and it's what I imagine an older McClane would be. And
A bit more jaded, burned out.
Yeah.
he totally carries this movie. He's like, oh, I've seen all this before. And it even comments on, what makes McClane tick, which is something the other sequels don't do. They just kind of go about, the plot of the movie. There's terrorists.
Right.
This one actually has, it actually tries to go for a little bit of substance there, which I appreciate. I also think the action in this is extremely well executed. This is a perfectly paced movie with not an ounce of fat on it. I am consistently engaged, and it absolutely nails the cat and mouse aspect that is integral to a Die Hard film with its villain. And it completely, I love that we're seeing Gabriel get more and more frustrated, but he's never completely powerless to McClane. He has chips on his side. He gets Lucy and he gets
Goosey.
Farrell.
Just kidding.
What?
Sorry, go ahead.
I got
What?
it.
No, what'd you say?
You just said he gets Lucy, and then I said, and
Lucy.
Goosey.
Yeah, you don't ever feel like
Yeah.
it's just like a hollow bluff. Like he's still deadly. Like he will.
Yeah,
kill them.
he's not steamrolling Gabriel. Like Gabriel has skin in the game too. So I just you get the sense that this was it's a perfectly balanced concoction of everything that makes a good Die Hard film, even if it does really go over the top in certain areas where I didn't feel like it needed to.
Right.
The jet sequence particularly was testing for me, where I was like, oh, you guys could have reined that back in a little bit.
Right.
Like, just a little. But on top of that, I also I think the buddy dynamic that's present in the third film is enhanced here with his partnership with Farrell, who Justin Long, man, give him some credit here. He is.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing a great job holding his own against McClane, and as I mentioned earlier, these guys are perfect foils for one another. Or Justin Long is the perfect foil for McClane, where he's just calling him out on all of his stuff, and vice versa. McClane is calling him out on all of his, and he does such a good job of defining McClane, and what kind of person he is. He's what a good foil is for.
Right.
So yeah, I just have a lot of fun with this movie, and maybe it's just nostalgia or bias or whatever, because this was one of my first Die Hard experiences. But I can't deny that watching it again, it tapped into all of that once more, and this was after seeing 2 and 3, and I feel like the transition from 3 to this one is, and it was 12 years or something like that, and it is a graceful transition, surprisingly, where you would think it would be jarring, like Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Right.
So yeah, I stand by my 9. I know that sounds insane, but I stand by it.
Not that insane.
Yeah.
We have 2 8.5s.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't, and I'm honestly changing to an 8.5.
Woo!
based
AJ's
on-
on the 8.5.
Well, like I was already mostly there, and I kind of I don't know that truck scene really got me, I guess. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean everything we talked about, like first Irina said, like Oliphant as Gabriel was an excellent villain, and I didn't really give that enough credit, and then Reese just put the nail in the coffin for it, and it's a good movie. It is. And I don't think you should be
One of
ashamed
us.
of a 9 either.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So AJ, you want to crunch those numbers now?
I'll give Noah a chance to change if he wants.
No, he's gonna stay with this 8.
Nah, I'll stick with my
Okay.
8.
All right.
I do like it, but
Yeah.
So we have a group average of 8.5, and
All
that
right.
puts it below Tropic Thunder at an 8.6, and above Rain of Fire and The Hateful Eight at an 8.4.
Okay.
Interesting.
Nice.
Good
Okay.
company.
Cool.
I think,
Okay.
like you mentioned, that the time gap, and almost like the older movies, they have kind of this certain X factor, which I don't know how to put my finger on it, but like the vintageness of it kind of lends it a little bit more
Right.
weight. Like,
Yeah.
kinda, I think I spoke about it, especially in the first one, like kind of almost part of Americana, especially with the first one. And
Yeah,
then
and
the
you're-
third
you're
one
also,
kind of
like-
gleaned on that a little bit too. This one being newer didn't really, catch hold of that momentum, but it did, make up ground in being a good movie in other ways. So
Yeah, and what this movie doesn't have behind it is this inclination towards old movies to be like, well, for its time, this was good.
Yeah.
But this one's still on that cusp of
Right.
where no, this is of our time.
Right.
Where you can't put it in the same light that you do the first 3 movies. You have to compare it more to modern standards.
Right.
Even though it is, now 13 years ago. But yeah.
so what was the box office like?
We're going to critical reviews.
Oh, reviews. I see.
All right, let's go to what the critics thought. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has an 82%. It is the second highest rated Die Hard movie on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's honestly unexpected.
Yeah, with an audience
Yeah.
score of 86%. So
We're splitting the
All right.
difference.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I it's just funny because it seems like a crowd pleaser more than a critical pleaser.
I can see that.
well, it shows you the critics aren't always
Yeah.
complete snobs.
That's true.
So
90% of the time they are, but
yeah, on Metacritic it has a 69, which is a generally
Nice.
favorable reviews, with an audience score mirroring that of 6.9. And on IMDb, this movie has a 7.1, which is an audience-based score. So positive across the board for this one. More positive on Rotten Tomatoes than the other 2 sites, but Yeah, people liked this movie, even though it's faced some backlash from like, this will sound funny, but diehard fans
Yeah.
who think that this movie goes a little over the top. And, you know, I push back on that a little because, guys, Die Hard 2 is that. It's
Yeah.
just not on a modern level.
Yeah, to me, Die Hard 2 is the what is it, like the black horse of the series?
Dark Horse.
Dark horse. Yeah, is that right?
Dark
Black
Horse.
Sheep.
Black sheep.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
I guess it depends on what your point about it is.
Actually, just wait till we talk about 5.
Well, okay. Forget about 5.
Another beer bet.
But
That's our Crystal Skull movie.
no, I think we all know that
Double or
5
nothing.
is probably going to be bad. I don't think that's going to be positive. I know Reese doesn't think it's going to be positive, so
Yeah.
I'd just be giving him another beer.
I literally have no idea. what I'm
None of
in
us have
for.
seen it, I don't think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But 2 to me is very evidently the worst one.
Of what you've seen so
that I've
far,
seen so
right.
far. So I don't understand why that one has better reviews than 3.
I think it's
Yeah.
just the time between the original trilogy and this one. It's a lot of time to build up hype or expectations for something, and people who were already big Die Hard fans had some sort of expectation built up for what a proper Die Hard 4 should be, and maybe
Right.
it just wasn't that.
Yeah, it just still surprises me.
Yeah,
But
I agree. It's
but
yeah. That
whatever.
said, though, this movie, I think 5 made it official, and I haven't seen 5, so maybe I'll enjoy it. I'm going to go in with that one with an open mind. But I think 5 established 4 is like part of the official, like, okay, we're not going to disown 4.
Right.
You know, because they saw 5, and it's like, okay, we can keep 4, just you take 5.
Right.
I think that's kind of the outlook on this film.
yeah.
All right, let's go into the box office. This movie came out on June 27th in 2007. It opened against Ratatouille. Also in theaters at the time were Evan Almighty, 1408, and Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. They were making a good amount of money at this time as well, so there are considerations here.
I think a Pirates movie just before that too.
Yeah, that had been playing for a few
Harry
weeks.
Potter: Order of the Phoenix was a little after.
Yeah, those ones were a little farther off, so I didn't include them. But the ones actually making
Direct competition.
and significant sums of money at the box office at the time were the ones listed. So, guys, worldwide, what do you all think Live Free or Die Hard did at the box office? And I'm not doing inflation on this one because it's close enough to where we're at today. So
You want to do it no budget this time? Try and guess
Just
cold.
no budget.
no, I'll give you all the budget. The budget was 110 million.
Dang it. All right. Well, I kind of have a guess then.
All right, go ahead, Noah.
I'm gonna say 500.
500 million.
Yeah, 530.
I'm gonna say
Remember-
we must be getting better. Hopefully, if we're in the right ballpark. But that was what I was gonna aim towards. Was right around there, and then you said, "I was like, man, we're just always on the same numbers now."
530 for Noah. David.
Oh, higher or lower? I'm gonna go high. I'm gonna say 600.
Okay. AJ, how about you?
450.
450. Irina.
I accidentally saw it when I was looking
Okay,
something
so
up.
you're disqualified.
Yeah.
AJ, you were the closest.
Darn. I am
This
too high.
movie made 388 million worldwide.
I thought it would have
Under 4.
done pretty large.
Yeah, more than triple its budget though. It did just fine. Domestically, it did 134 million, which was about exactly the same if you include inflation as Die Hard with a Vengeance. It just took a down tick overseas this time around, and sometimes overseas can be kind of unpredictable unless you have a really well-established franchise that just is known to do very well overseas. Die Hard with a Vengeance was a kind of unexpected high performer overseas, so it was still kind of a who knows how this next one will do. 12 years have passed, so but whatever. It still did okay overseas, but that ultimately resulted in a lower box office total than the previous one. If y'all are curious about inflation, I'll just go through that real quick. Anyway, the budget was 110 million, which inflates to 138 million, which is actually lower than the inflated budget of the previous film, but not Die Hard 1 and 2. So it cost a little less. if you actually do the math there. And worldwide, it inflates to 487 million.
So you're saying I was the closest?
Well, we weren't counting inflation, so. But yes, if you were, yes, you are the closest. You can take that win if it helps.
Consolation prize.
I actually still think that AJ is closer.
Yeah.
Or
Actually, he is.
yeah.
No, wait, you said 5. Yeah, you said 530.
Yeah.
But the 487 million it made worldwide versus the Die Hard 2 or Die Hard with a Vengeance, which was unexpectedly huge overseas. That one was 625 million inflated. And the domestic total, 134 million inflated to 168 million, which Die Hard with a Vengeance inflated was 170 million. So it's in the same ballpark, but it's not showing that positive growth that you'd like to see from a huge franchise. Is just kind of like flatlining a bit, which in the case of this one, I don't see that as a red flag because the budget was lower and it just showed that, hey, people are still interested in seeing McClane. He's just not going to, quadruple the box office totals.
Which he never did.
Yeah, which you normally expect. Well, he did for Vengeance and Die Hard 2, but not the first one.
Well, the budget was lower in those, right?
They were higher when you count for inflation.
With inflation, yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, franchise is still alive and well. They've successfully, it's not rebooted, but it's re-energized. This is like the start of the bald McClane era. I always like kind of delineate the movies with that. It's like you have your original trilogy and then you have the bald ones. So, yep. It's still a profitable property. This movie didn't affect the franchise in a negative way. It just showed that, people aren't quite as hot on McClane as they once were, but this is still a moneymaker here. It's something that we can still invest in. And, hey, I think people would return for a Die Hard 5.
Did they, though? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, there is, in fact, a sequel to this movie. I was almost thinking about, not even referencing that there's a sequel. But
Even though we all talked about it.
Yeah, I've got to give it a fair shot. I haven't seen it. I don't like crapping on a movie that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
I've just heard so much through the grapevine that it's like...
That might mean that we could enjoy it more than we think we will.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to temper expectations, but also just be open to, what that movie might do.
Right.
Who knows? We'll see. That movie, though, is called A Good Day to Die Hard. Came out, 6 years after this movie in 2013. Another pretty big gap, but not nearly as big as the one between Die Hard with a Vengeance and Live Free or Die Hard. But
it sounds like a James Bond intro song.
A Good Day to Die Hard. It does. Except
Good
you just cut off the
day,
hard.
Die Hard.
Perfect.
And then a bunch of silhouettes of women dancing. Yeah.
Who would sing that one?
I don't know.
Actually, we should have Bruce Willis sing it.
I think you should sing it, David.
Good day to die hard.
No, that's not, I don't think that's right.
Brendan Stiller.
All right. Yeah. Next episode is A Good Day to Die Hard. We are closing out our Die Hard franchise. Y'all excited?
I think it's a good day.
Yeah. I think we've been positive on all of these with the exception of Die Hard 2, which AJ...
I gave it a good score.
Which we were mostly positive on. We weren't overwhelmingly oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
AJ didn't like it. But this has been one of our more consistent franchises so far. Of course, I get that the looming imminent disaster in the future.
Don't say, you don't know.
I know. I just you start to feel it.
Yeah, it's funny because the second one, I think I gave it either 7 or 7.5. I can't remember.
Yeah, something around
there. Retroactively, I wanted. I'm not going to do it for the official state of things. We'll keep it, but I would retroactively lower its score.
Yeah, I think you gave it 7.5, and you even discussed on Vengeance with you wanted to go down to 7.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Die Hard 2, I think is fun though, but to each their own. All right. Any closing words on Live Free or Die Hard before we end the episode? No, I'll take that as a resounding no. We are
I
done.
think we've said it all.
All right, guys. Goodbye.
Skiddly-doo.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother.